Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar-Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Welcome back, everyone. I am thrilled to have Brandon Allen here today. He is joining me in North Texas as well, which is always fun when we have a neighbor. But Brandon owns Masterpiece Construction, but his journey to that point is fascinating, and I can't wait to get into that today. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate it.
All right. So, Brandon, tell us a little bit. I'm interrupting myself. I want to ask you our first official question first, because I know it's going to take us a moment to get the full backstory of how you got to be where you are today. So first official question, Brandon, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
Oh, for sure.
All right. Confirmed. Okay. So Brandon, you have not always been in the construction industry. We have a little bit of like a God bless the broken road that got us here, I think. Tell us how did you end up where you are today a little bit? Give us a little bit of backstory.
Yeah, sure. But definitely a circuitous route to where I am today. I grew up in rural North Carolina, and I grew up in a blue collar family. And, I have young kids, and I feel the same thing that my parents did, I'm sure, and always wanting better for them. And so from a young age, I was encouraged to you got to go to college. You got to do these things. We didn't have these things, so we want you to have these things. And so from a young age, it was pounded into me, you're going to go to college, you're going to get an education, you're going to become a professional something, right? And then kind of as I got older, kind of started narrowing down. Well, growing up in a small town, there weren't a whole lot of examples of what that could be, what that could mean or be that I saw as a, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid. One of the things that I did see was the local pharmacy where my family got prescriptions for decades. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I could do that. So, my first jobs were working on farms and in warehouses and stuff like that, because that's where my dad was. So that's where I went. And then as I got older and I became a teenager and stuff, I got a job working at the pharmacy. And, I was like, oh yeah, I could do this, I think. And so, and I was like, well, I can probably make a pretty reasonable living doing it and stuff like that. And so I went off to college, went to University of South Carolina. And when I got there, I met a man named John that had a painting company, and I started working for John part-time. And I did that for about 3 years leading up to going to pharmacy school. So the whole time the intention was to go to pharmacy school. Well, I really enjoyed my job with John. I wasn't sure if it was just working for John or if it was actually the work I was doing or whatnot. But anyways, went to pharmacy school, got my pharmacist license and in the state of Texas first, because I moved out here right after pharmacy school. I kind of bounced around a little bit. I was trying to find my way. I was trying to feel my way through it. I didn't have any problems with pharmacy school. I'm a fairly bright person. I made it through and without issue. And then when I got out, I had no idea what I really wanted to do within that field. I thought, well, I'll just go work for Walgreens. So I did that. I worked for an inpatient rehab facility, kind of like where people go after strokes or hip replacement, stuff like that. And very quickly found myself in management roles, which is, great. That's always been a thing of mine. I've always ended up in leadership roles, but then I just wasn't happy though. And so I ended up buying my own pharmacy at one point, 2016, 2017, can't remember. But anyways, did that for several years. And it was better. I liked the business aspect of it. It was fun, the entrepreneurship aspect. And then 2020 came around, COVID hit. And, by all the vanity standards, I had been successful in that business and I was growing it, and I've taken it from just a little over $1 million in gross revenue to north of $3 million. But the problem was I made some mistakes along the way in managing the business that the margins in pharmacy are so razor thin that any missteps can be fatal. And I didn't know that at the time. Looking back, this is all clear to me now.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I almost went bankrupt in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I distinctly remember having a conversation with my wife on the phone, just like, she's like, what are we going to do? And I was like, I don't know. We might have to file bankruptcy.
Mm.
And, anyways, this all came about in 2021 through the help of a mentor and then him kind of financially bailing us out, and then him working with me and mentoring me through it. We were able to pull the nose up on it, got it back to being profitable. Had to do some really hard things during that time. I had to fire a lot of people. I had to, do some very uncomfortable things for me, but it was a learning experience for sure. But after the dust all settled from that, it really hit me that how unhappy I was, because all that stuff, I'm pretty sure, took about 10 years off my life. And so sat down with my wife, and I was just like, I got to do something different. This isn't it, and she was like, well, you're basically unemployable. I was like, that's fact. That's fact. In fact, we had, I'll take a quick side tangent here. We interviewed a company called Culture Index, and they do, so you're familiar with Culture Index. They're here in DFW. Anyways, they said, well, why don't you take the assessment on yourself? And they gave one to April too. And gosh, what's the guy's name? Is it John?
I don't know them personally. I'm
Anyway,
familiar with their work. A lot of people I know like them.
And they're pretty good, right? I know a lot of my friends that are entrepreneurs use them.
Yes, they're a darling of the entrepreneurs organization, EO community. Exactly.
So anyways, he pulls my Culture Index report up, and he was like, it's like reading hieroglyphics, right? You need somebody to teach you how to read them. Anyways, he pulls it up and he says, Brandon, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're unemployable.
Well, I had my suspicions.
Yeah, I had my suspicions about that. But anyways, I'm sorry, I digress. So over the course of about a year, I was really praying hard, thinking on this, meditating on it, really trying to figure out what was I going to do when I grew up. And if you want to throw somebody into an existential crisis, ask them that at 35 years old when they're supposed to have it all figured out.
Right.
And so I finally found peace with what it was. And I was like, I am an entrepreneur, 100%, no doubt about it. And I am passionate about it, and I enjoy construction stuff. I was like, that's the reason I always enjoyed my work painting, was because, we would paint these houses, and it didn't matter if it was a ratty old house that somebody just needed to put a fresh coat of paint on, or if it was a brand new construction that we were walking into that was, going to sell for north of $1 million. I just enjoyed making it beautiful. And so I told April, I was like, I've managed people for the last, 10 plus years. I have this experience and passion for and knowledge about construction. I was like, I'm going to go out and be a general contractor. And she looked at me and she said, you're going to be a what?
But you're a pharmacist.
Yeah. She was like, that's a big change. And I was like, I really do think I need a big change. And so she said, okay, and so spent several more months kind of putting everything together. And I slowly ramped up over the early part of 2023, just taking small projects here and there, kind of feeling it out, getting my databases built out with the people I needed, the network I needed. And in September of 23, I took a leap into this thing full time, and it was scary as hell. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But because it was such a departure too, right? And so I started Masterpiece Construction full bore in 2023, and it has been a rocket ship. I mean, it really is just like having to, it's hot drinking from the fire hose some days. And, super, super blessed and grateful for what's happened. But I also feel like, my story and what's occurred in my journey is something that I want to share with people, because it's wild, man. And so I just want people to understand that, like, no matter what you're facing, nothing's permanent. Okay, there's a rap song I like. It's like, failure isn't fatal. Anyways, so I want to just show people, like, even if you do file bankruptcy or you are on the verge of it or you feel like you're failing, it doesn't mean that's the end of your story.
Right.
And doesn't mean you can't make big changes.
Yeah.
And so I've made a big change and it's been successful by all measures so far.
Well, and it's not like you're like, oh, I'm gonna not be a pharmacist anymore. I'm gonna be a pharmaceutical rep or something like that. It's not like tangential or related. It's like totally different industry. That's remarkable. Good for you.
Yeah. And that was one of those things that like I thought about that. Like that was a big consideration for me. I was like, man, maybe I should just be a sales rep. I was like, I like talking to people. And honestly, I probably could have done that and been okay, and felt okay about it. But I just, like God led me here for a reason. And it's been a wild ride, but man, it's been fun.
Good. I'm glad. So, talk to us about the genesis of the business. I mean, when you started, did you just have an immediate welcome to the market, and how did you built your team? Like, tell us a little bit about that beginning stages.
Yeah. So when I started, obviously I was doing everything. I was trying to just manage it all myself, and that worked okay. But I started building these relationships, and that was where I really found the secret sauce or whatever to grow in this thing. Was just building relationships. And it wasn't building relationships in a way of like, hey, I have this construction company, send me business. It wasn't just just out there begging for referrals. There would be a time in that relationship where that came about, but it was about building trust with the right people. I call them strategic partners. And when I would go out and look for these strategic partners, I was thinking about who's talking to my ideal client already. So I started with real estate agents, and that was okay. Like it produced a little bit of work, but it wasn't the work I was looking for. It was more like they'd call me and be like, hey, can you help get this house ready to be listed? So it'd be like a fresh coat of paint, maybe some floor repairs, stuff like that, but not really anything I was excited about. And then I tried architects. Well, here in Texas, at least, and it may be different in different areas, but in Texas, a lot of times the architects are being hired by builders. And so when I was going to them looking for the bigger jobs, it was, they were like, well, most of our clients are builders or are referred from builders. So like usually already had a builder attached to them. So that didn't really work either. And then what I found was going and talking to designers, interior designers, heavy duty interior designers, not just people that pick out like, nice furniture and window coverings and stuff like that, but heavy duty interior designers that somebody comes to them and be like, I hate my kitchen, fix it. Those were the people that I built the best partnerships with. And I would build those partnerships based on, they always say know, like, and trust, right? So obviously I worked really hard on the know and the trust side. I think I'm a pretty likable guy, so I didn't feel like I had to work too hard at that, but the trust thing, the trust was key. And so everything I told them I would do, I did. And I made sure I did it. I didn't care if I had to set myself 6 alarms. I made sure I did it. If I said, hey, I'll send you a pricing sheet over this afternoon, I would set an alarm on my phone while I'm sitting there to send that pricing sheet. And it was amazing how little of that they got from other contractors. And that's where we've grown so quickly, was like, I built that trust with them. And so anyways, I built this trust, and it just started snowballing. One designer, I did one job with one designer, and then within the next month, I had 3 more referrals from her.
Wow.
And these referrals are coming in warm, so they're converting at a stupid high rate, which is great because I know that designer is talking me up and they're doing the selling for me. It doesn't mean I can be lazy, and it doesn't mean I can't, and I'm certainly not going to break their trust at this point. But it's just like, it was just such a rush of business in. So then I started hiring people, and, I've made some faulty hires, tried to get out cheap, tried to hire people that were, less qualified or just were convenient, but didn't work out well.
Hiring in a hurry is tough.
Yeah, exactly. So, on the next round, when I was starting to hire, I started taking my time a little more, and I understood more about my recruits and stuff like that. And man, we have a team right now that I am just pumped about. I mean, we got a young guy that I hired him as a project manager, and I knew from his disc assessment that he probably wasn't a great project manager, but he was a good kid with good heart and good work ethic. And so I was like, I want you on board. And he did project management and he got through it, but you could tell it wasn't like, it was taking its toll on him, as well as he was, not the best at it. And so anyways, I'm converting him into an office role, being an estimator, helping put pricing together and stuff. And then I hired 2 project managers that have just bukus of experience and are just out there crushing it right now.
Nice.
So we're in a really good spot right now, where I feel like we can make it through the rest of 25 and probably most of 26 without having to hire anybody else, assuming nothing happens.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we're really in a place right now where we're starting to hit a stride. We're still working on those referral relationships with strategic partners, but we're also, we have some paid advertising and stuff going on too, which is great.
I wonder how many boutique GCs use disc assessments.
Yeah. So I actually picked it up from a peer group of GCs.
Okay.
It's from all over the country, not just locally here, but yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely, you can tell when it starts getting talked about that it's new to a lot of people. So yeah, I think to that end, I think there's, a subset of contractors out there that realize the value in it. But yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, it's kind of relatively new to people. But yeah, I mean, it's been great for us and great for understanding people. And now what we're working on is we're kind of putting together a cheat sheet for each employee of like, okay, how to communicate with that person. What do you do if you have a problem with that person? Just kind of tips, not necessarily, oh, well, save this or save that. Just kind of tips of like, hey, if you feel like you're not getting anywhere with Jacob, for example, try slowing down and lower your tone of voice. Because me, when I get into that authoritative role, I tend to get a little louder, a little faster.
Yeah.
A little more in your face. That's not what he responds to. I almost have to sit back and take more of that like big brother fatherly role with him, talk calmly. And when I do, and I ask a lot of questions, he gets where he needs to go without me having to push very hard.
Right.
But if I didn't take the time to read his disc assessment and understand what makes him tick, then I wouldn't know how to communicate with him because my natural communication style doesn't work. So it's one of those things that like you use it hiring, but you also use it in your management too.
Right. It's just so interesting there. I think in the knowledge work field, like mine in PR, and then also I think in your field or in the ancillary trades, if you know how to do something, you can just hang out your shingle and you now have a business, or you have a laptop, or you have a hammer, you're good to go. But to be able to take it and professionalize it to the nth degree and run it like a business that's 10, 20, 100 times larger than you actually are, just really, builds your business to be so much stronger than it could be. And so I think if anyone's listening right now is like, yeah, no, these tools are available to really create the best business that you can have now and make it easier in the long run if you're hiring and training and firing and using best practices that people in a variety of industries are using. So good for you.
Yeah. I mean, and it's more accessible than people think. I think a disc assessment, if you pay retail for each assessment, I think it's like $65.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not terribly expensive. I mean, you don't have to do them on every candidate that comes through the door. You can if you want to. But, you don't have to on every one of them. Wait till you get down to like 5 or 6 that you really like. Right. And then just bite the bullet and pay that $300 to get them done. And then that way you have that much more insight into that recruit.
Right. Cheaper than a bad hire.
Oh, way cheaper than a bad hire. It can save you months months of struggle and pain and frustration.
Or even if you're not using it to screen, which I don't think you can, but if you're just kind of getting better insight into people, but having it on the back end too, of just like you said, how do you communicate with everybody? How do you create this really solid team by knowing everyone's communication styles? And you can talk, but they're not going to hear you if you're using the wrong volume.
Exactly.
So how do you fuel yourself as a leader? Are you part of, you mentioned a peer group? Are you part of other groups? Do you read a lot of books or listen to podcasts? Like, how do you make sure that you're the best leader that you can be for the business and your team?
So, kind of I got multiple answers here. One, I make sure that I take care of myself, that I'm not eating complete trash. I do like pizza. Pizza is my guilty pleasure. I just freaking love pizza.
Yeah, it's delicious.
So once a week I have pizza, but the rest of the time I'm eating mainly meat and vegetables and stuff like that, and trying to eat relatively healthy. I go to the gym 3 to 6 days a week. I make sure I stick to those things. I'm spending time in the Word. I'm taking time to pray. I work on myself. I make sure I'm in a good spot first, because if not, what ends up happening is I'm short fused. I don't treat people with the respect that they deserve. And I can't sit there and listen to what they're saying, receive that information, process it, and then give them anything in the return. All I hear is negativity, or all I hear is, criticism, or all I hear is complaining. So if I'm not in a good space, then I can't help them. So first of all, I take care of me. Number two, I do have peer groups, a peer group that I work with. It's a nationwide organization of remodelers, so it's very specific. One of the things that my goal for 26 is to plug in locally with people that maybe not are necessarily remodelers or construction, in the construction business, but just CEOs in general. So just kind of expand my network and expand my horizons a little bit and learn from others. And then, I listen to podcasts. I have 3 young kids. I got a 6, 4, and 1-year-old. So I don't have time to read, but I do have time to listen to audiobooks and podcasts. So, I try to make it through. I try to spend my time listening to industry specific podcasts and then some mindset podcasts too. I like the School of Greatness podcast. I like, there's a podcast called Remodelers on the Rise. I really like those guys, for industry specific. And then, I listen to Men in the Arena, which is a Christian men's podcast, which is cool. That one helps fuel me. But all that stuff, I feel like you can't look at leadership as just I'm a business owner and that's it. Because that's not the way life works. You're a complete human being. So you have to look at all aspects and take care of all aspects, even if it's just a little bit at a time.
Absolutely.
So when I get out of whack as a leader, as a husband, as a father, it's all the same thing.
Right.
It's all the same thing. My mindset's bad. My body's not being taken care of. My energy's not being protected, stuff like that. And so those are the things that are most important to me. It's just taking care of myself, my body, and then plugging into the right, avenues as I go along, throughout my day. I spend a lot of time in the truck, driving around and stuff. So, I have usually at least an hour or 2 every day to listen to a podcast or listen to a book. So that's where I usually, consume my most information.
Yeah. Well, and me too. I mean, if I can, be in my car or fold laundry or whatever, and just, be listening and learning and absorbing. Do you, are there any books that have had, kind of an outsized impact on your mindset or philosophy of business?
I think that oh gosh, what's his name? Mike Mikowitz, Profit First. I feel like I've read a number of his books. I feel like they've all been helpful in a lot of different regards. And then Donald Miller has a couple of books out that are really, really good and kind of boil it down to the bare essentials, what you really need to understand. I think one of them's called Business Made Simple. And I feel like everybody that just feels like they're a little bit overwhelmed and getting bogged down by all the things that have to be done, go read that book first. That way you kind of understand like big picture what needs to occur, and then start filling it in. I think Elon Musk has a analogy of when he learns something new, he takes an approach like a tree. So he has the trunk and the stump, the main part of the tree, and he goes from there, and then he works on the branches and filling out the branches and all that kind of stuff. So start with the core concepts and understand the big picture, and then worry about all the little details that fall out, which is like the leaves on a tree.
Yeah. Mike Michalowicz and Donna Miller are both good. Like, here you are. Like, right. Do these things first, and then you can worry about everything else later.
Exactly.
Yeah, I actually, I'm concluding my 6th year of being a Story Brand certified guide from Donna Miller. I will no longer be one after this month, but it's been a great 6 years, and learning about messaging and marketing from that mindset. Good content for sure. Okay, so are you impatient about anything in particular right now? Do you have something on the horizon, something you're creating that's new products, new services, writing a book, anything like that?
Oh yeah, no books. I don't know that I have the stamina for a book.
Heard, yeah.
But no, we do. We're getting into new construction this year, which is great. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Kind of deviating from what we've already done, but in a tangential way. That was a lesson I took away from pharmacy. Is like when I started to struggle there, and I was desperate to try to like create revenue. I tried to start all these different things at once, and like none of them come to fruition. But what I noticed too was a lot of the things that I attempted were not in any way related to what my core business was. And so I promised myself I will not do that again. If I can't utilize the resources I have in my core business to create that or accelerate that new business, then I'm not going to do it. I'm not touching it.
Right. Smart.
Millionaires are made from usually one thing, and then they're made billionaires by diversifying, and they protect from there. But you can't get the cart ahead of the horse and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a little bit of real estate, I'm gonna have a little bit of this, I'm gonna have this and that. If you do that, you're gonna stretch yourself too thin versus focusing on one thing, build it big, and then using diversification to protect what you have. And then as far as what I'm impatient about, I think one of those things is just like you were saying, running this business like it's 10, 20 times the size that it really is. Because like right now I have this list of, procedures and SOPs that I want to get hammered out and implemented, but I'm having to be patient about like, okay, let's just take one at a time. So yeah, like that's probably one of those things that, especially like right now, is something I'm having to be patient on, that I'm not real patient.
Nor am I, and that's why I have someone else on my team doing those.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to go back to your comment about focus a second ago. I just finished reading That Will Never Work by Mark Randolph about the founding of Netflix. Very good founder story. Really enjoyed it. And one of the key takeaways I got from it was focus takes courage. And they had so many opportunities to follow different paths along the way. Like at one point they were looking at expanding into Canada when it was the mail order business. And they were like, no, it's in theory, yes, we can do this and it won't be that hard. But then, when you really start to peel the onion, it is so disruptive from a process standpoint. And so they ultimately shelved it, saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to focus. But that became a touchstone going forward. So something that felt like maybe it was going to be, okay, is this taking us away from our core again? They called it the Canada principle. Like, nope, focus, back on track. No, does this serve, are we narrowing down? We need to narrow versus getting too confused and following too many paths that ultimately would bankrupt the business. So good for you. Exactly. Very wise. Thank you. Okay. So you've shared a little bit already, but I'm going to ask it this way. What's something that's happened in your business life where it felt like the worst thing that could happen, and you're like, I don't think we're gonna survive this, but ultimately it turned out to be one of the best things that could have happened?
I think it was definitely, in 21 when we almost had to file bankruptcy. I just remember how terrible I felt having to lay people off, having to make those hard decisions. And just to be perfectly frank, I hid a lot of it from my wife for a long time because I was so ashamed of what I had made that business out to be, that I just internalized it all, and I just carried that stress with me everywhere. And it was a dark time for me. It was very, very difficult time. And I still remember a lot of those times, just not knowing what I was going to do, not knowing what was going to happen next and how I was ever going to get out of it. Ultimately it all has worked out, but yeah, it was a very dark time. It was a time when, I had to learn humility, real quick. I didn't have all the answers. Still don't have all the answers, but I had to learn that. And, I got a little cocky because I had grown this business much bigger than it had started. I had almost 4x'd it. But it was just the vanity numbers. It was such, excuse my French, but it was just bullshit numbers that, didn't really matter at the end of the day and didn't make my family's life any better. And that's ultimately why we do this, right? Like, we're trying to make our customers' lives better, and we're trying to make our families' lives better.
Right. Exactly.
That's why we do what we do, and put in these, take these incredible risks and work these incredibly long hours and take on so much stress as for them. And, it was a very hard time for me. And, I had to learn a lot of humility to get through that, and learned a lot of lessons from it, though.
Do you find yourself asking for help more readily now?
Oh, for sure. I right afterwards, I kind of went through a period where I was almost too eager to do that rather than trusting my own thought process or my own knowledge. But I have found that, like, now when I go to problem solve, I think through as much as I can by myself first. I make my notes, I try to organize it, and then I'll bounce it off of a couple people that I think, can provide good insight when it comes to that. Whether it's direct questions about, hey, would you do X or Y? Or if it's more like, hey, this is what I got in my mind. This is what I've fleshed out so far. What am I missing? Or what have I not thought of yet? So I think those are, that was kind of a pendulum swing, right?
Yes.
I was over on one side where I didn't want to ask for help at all. And then I swung over here and I was like, what? How do I tie my shoes? And now I'm back in the middle where I feel like I've got a balance between being confident enough in my own abilities, but humble enough to know that, that I sometimes I need to ask for help, or at least, entertain other opinions. So, humble with a hint of Kanye.
Well, it makes sense too that your confidence totally got rattled. The rug got pulled out from underneath you, and it's like, oh gosh, which way is up? It takes a minute to get back to center. So makes sense.
It did.
But I'm glad you're. Learning humility is generally a painful process, but as long as we can learn.
For sure.
You mentioned some of the work that you did as a kid. Were you a little bit of an entrepreneur on the side too, growing up?
Actually, never really dug into it as a kid. I know I love all these stories, and I love when I see kids in my neighborhood doing entrepreneurial things. I'm just like, all right, cool, yeah. But that was never me. I stayed very busy most of the time. I played a lot of sports, and I worked more in the summers and stuff like that when I was a kid. But anyway, so no, it was never really me.
It's okay. Yes, sometimes it's like it was entrepreneurship all along, and other times it's like, well, sometimes we do things that we end up being unemployable, so we have to do it.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. But when you were a kid, was there a personality trait of yours that you were made to feel was a weakness? Like, oh, Brandon, you're so competitive or ambitious or empathetic. Maybe you heard it that it was a weakness, or you just perceived it as one, but now you realize that it's actually your superpower.
I'd say there's probably two of them. One is the competitiveness. because I definitely, there were times when I was way too competitive and like I'd hurt people's feelings or, I probably wasn't the best to play board games with when I was a kid because I always wanted to win.
Yeah.
And then the other one is perfectionism. That one was tough for me. And I still struggle with it on a day-to-day basis. I've really gotten to the point where I don't let perfect stand in the way of good enough. But that was a learned trait.
Yeah.
That was something that I struggled with a lot as a kid. I was a straight A student all through. I didn't do great in undergrad and college, but in pharmacy school, I had a 4.0. Like I had straight A's all the way through high school. And then, you turn a small town boy, lives in a city, and it just usually doesn't work out well. So it took me a couple of years to kind of get my bearings in undergrad.
See what the world holds for you.
Exactly. But yeah, like I was always a perfectionist, held myself to a very, very high standard. And my mom, even today, she's like, like, you're doing great. You don't have to be like, whatever. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm like, yeah. So it's still one of my superpowers, but I've definitely had to learn when to turn it on and off.
Right. It's having high standards is a good thing, but it can hold you back too, because the world's never going to see it if I can't let it go. And then also as you add team members, like my 112% is somebody else's, 80% or whatever the math works out to be. But it's like, how do we have high standards, invite people in, trust them to do what they're going to do, and maybe it's not exactly how you would have done it, but also you're not having to do it. So what can you let go of is an interesting balancing act to learn.
Right. 100%.
So as we get close to wrapping up, do you have any advice for our listeners to make their lives and businesses stronger and better today?
Just don't give up. Don't try not to get bogged down into the darkness of one situation and know that there's something on the other side, and there always is. And so it's just kind of encouragement that it can be done. No matter how bleak things look, there is a bounce back from it. As long as you're willing to do what you need to do to stand back up.
Right. Something that occurs to me is that a lot of times, even when the situation really is dire, it's a lot more manageable when you speak to someone about it, whether it's your spouse or a mentor or something like that. It's much easier to divide the sorrows amongst more than one pair of shoulders. And so I'm glad you communicated. I'm glad you got help. I'm glad you had someone who could help, and get you on this new path.
Well, and ultimately at the end of the day, we're talking about money. It's not, it doesn't have any bearing on our soul, on our life, so what, you have to sell your car, you have to move back in with your parents or a friend or whatever. Like, yes, all that stuff is tough, and that, it's not a situation anybody wants to be in, but ultimately at the end of the day, it is just money.
Right.
And you still have your mind, you still have your health, you still have your soul. Like, those are the important things.
Exactly. Okay. So where can people find you?
So if they want to find me, they can find me on LinkedIn. I don't have a clue what the link is, but you can find me on LinkedIn. And then you can find Masterpiece Construction at masterpiececonstructiontx.com, or you can find us on social media on Facebook and Instagram with the same handle, Masterpiece Construction TX. And keep an eye out for some new construction coming up. We got some really great projects that are wrapping up, and we'll have lots of new photos to post here in the next several weeks. And I'm really pumped about, especially a couple of them. But nice. It's always great getting projects completed and photographed and getting it out there, because I just love showing off what these guys are able to accomplish.
Nice. Well, congratulations on all your success, and thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.